Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are.
A good day to all. This is Pastor Hart. And this is a letter just to introduce our granddaughter, Chanel. Chanel is in Japan. She is teaching English to some Japanese students. She experienced the last earthquake, and this is her testimony. So I want you to listen to it carefully. God bless you. God bless you real well.
During my quarantine period, when I first came to Japan, I experienced around 3 earthquakes while in my hotel room. My phone immediately notified me of the quake. I took it as a welcome to Japan. These things I expected, right? The mild shaking of the building didn't alarm me, but it reminded me to be prepared. I live in a small city in Akita Prefecture, in Tohoku region of Japan. When people find out that I actually selected Akita as one of my preferred placements in the JET program, they are often surprised. I can understand why. Most people choose places like Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka, to name a few. I knew that with the high number of applicants, the likelihood of being placed in these popular areas was small, so there had to be another reason for the question. Maybe I was overthinking things, but I had my reasons. I wanted to show that I was interested in more than just checking out Japan's most famous tourist hotspots, but I also knew that a major concern of mine when considering venturing to Japan was natural disasters. I knew most major earthquakes, tsunamis, and typhoons affect the East Coast, so I picked places on the west and those that were landlocked. As it happens, I was placed in a prefecture that I chose, and it has a very small incidence of severe earthquakes or casualties. Was this placement my doing? Certainly not. God's plan for my life are plans to prosper me and not to harm me. He has been directing my path from the very beginning. After almost 3 months of living in Akita, there had been no earthquake incidents, only heavy snow and below zero temperatures to bother me. On March 11th at 2:46 p.m., the entire school that I teach at observed a minute's silence in remembrance of the massive 9.0 magnitude earthquake that struck off the east coast of the Tohoku region of Japan on the same date in 2011. This earthquake triggered a tsunami that was felt all over the world and left thousands of persons displaced from their homes, even to this day. 5 days later, after 11:30 p.m., I was still awake in bed, watching one final episode of a show I was following before getting some sleep, when the bed started to shake. As these things go, everything happens very quickly and slowly at the same time. It was a mild shaking, just like in the hotel during my quarantine, but with the recent observance for the massive earthquake coming quickly to mind, I was feeling more wary. The shaking stopped after a few seconds, but I felt a very strong urge to prepare for something bigger. My lights were off, and I imagined that if I needed to run quickly, I would definitely need to see. So I turned on my bedroom light and sat up in bed, just waiting. Then, it happened. The shaking began again and got increasingly stronger. I couldn't believe it. It wasn't until I heard the building creaking that I bolted up. At this point, I should note that Japan has lots of warning systems in place for natural disasters, and a couple of them definitely triggered my fight, flight, and freeze response. An alarm started blaring in the street, and while I was processing what this meant and listening for running footsteps to determine if I should do the same, my phone started screaming, "Earthquake warning." My phone had never done that before, so I figured this must mean that it's serious. I quickly moved to stand in my doorway and put on my outdoor jacket, just in case I needed to get outside quickly. The adrenaline caused my hands to tremble. After the tremors in the earth and my body subsided, I checked with my friends to make sure they were all okay. It turned out that the earthquake registered as a magnitude 7.4 and triggered a small tsunami. In my prefecture, the Shindo scale, which indicates the amount of shaking felt in an area and goes from 0 to 7 with 10 categories, recorded a 4, which indicates that shaking can be enough to wake persons, cause alarm, or even cause items to fall. Needless to say that I took a while to fall asleep, but I thank God I wasn't in a prefecture closer to the epicenter, that I was safe, that nothing I owned broke, and that I was awake when it happened and not jolted from sleep by the shaking and alarms. I could only imagine the alarm and confusion I would have felt if that had happened, but God has kept me and will continue to keep me.
You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness.